in the beginning, and everybody lived happily ever after. In the middle was Tradespotting with this amazing video and these interesting charts. That's SPY. It's a very big index. And what's happening in the markets? Well, indeed, good question. I would ask the same thing myself. You'll probably get an answer tomorrow on Wednesday, Rocky Outcrop Show. But that's not all, because Wall Street will be placing its entire hope, faith, and all of your pension pots in the hands of a single silicon forging company that sells imagination to robots. That is Nvidia. Once just a maker of colorful computer chips for nerds, it's now a $4 trillion mega cathedral. Will investors sit lighting candles to AI, praying that the servers don't melt? It's so valuable now, Nvidia, that it's become the heavy end of the S&P 500. It drags the whole index down on a bad day and pushes it forward like a toddler, an especially muscly toddler, pushing a shopping trolley on a good day, up more than 30% this year and thousands of percent since we called the entry. A number of economists would describe that as loads. It's credited with about half of the market's recent good mood, the other half being the good coffee from KT. The shop is back open. Get in touch with them on Discord. Get your batch in. But here lies the problem. Faith, a bit like dangerous cooking in the kitchen. Things can rise dramatically and look impressive and then collapse before it's served. And that's what we're looking at. Earnings served tomorrow. Analysts asking whether Nvidia's next earnings report will be a magnificent golden goose or a dead pigeon delivered in a shoebox. Currently trading at 40 times its expected earnings. It's like paying £40 for a pint of milk because you're certain that one day it's going to turn into champagne. The NASDAQ equally overstretched, clinging to a valuation multiple of about 28, well above its long-term moving average. Potential correction coming in. It's perched there on a rickety ladder, balanced on a skateboard. Last week, AI optimism took a little bit of a wobble. MIT muttered something gloomy. Sam Altman reminded everyone he's a man who looks permanently like he's just forgot his oven is on. NASDAQ swooned in response, as did several traders who hadn't eaten anything except espresso from KT for days. So also get yourself down to the shops, but there's a couple of important shops to visit. First, Nvidia are expected to unveil $46 billion in quarterly revenue. That sounds like a lot because it is, although growth has slowed from the 250% fireworks show of 2024 to a mere 53% year on year, basically going from a speeding rocket to a very fast wheelbarrow. Analysts say this is all fine. Nvidia is still the Usain Bolt of silicon, whereas rivals are like a bloke in jeans. Complications abound. There's the China deal, in which Nvidia agreed to give the Trump administration 15% of its sales for the right to flog these watered-down H20 chips to Beijing. So Waterboy is back in Beijing. They need to make a sequel to that, don't they? It's not clear if this makes sense economically. It's not clear if Waterboy was a very good show. But it does sound like the plot of a particularly bad sequel. Beijing sulking, Washington cashing the checks, apparently, and Nvidia's supply chain quietly wondering if it's signed up for some sort of a Greek tragedy. Despite the risks, most investors are still thinking that Nvidia is the only functioning lighthouse in the storm. This is the chart at the minute, 4-hour time frame. You can see it's butting up against resistance. It's putting in a potential failure swing. It needs to drop back below the center line, hold lower, and price action will break below those previous lows at 169. If that happens, 143 is the target. Why? Fair value gaps. Lots of other interesting things. You should probably sign up for Rocky Outcrop's Patreon to know more about it. SPY, likewise, it's pulled down on a bad day by Nvidia. It could collapse. There's been a bad murder on the chart back at around 6,000. That's confluent with a 236. If SPY does correct, that's a great area to find support. If it doesn't, there's a gap, 382. Probably both of those break and you'll come down and see SPY in at around 5,555, which would be pretty brutal. In the meantime, it's hit our targets to the top side, so we'll see if that continues and strengthen the market. Nvidia, obviously a big impact there. very big impact. And that's looking at it on the 4-hour time frame, so quite significant. And then all of these charts have significance for LivePerson. Topside, you can see it's closed that gap it left, so that island in price closed, button off a 382, retracement now potentially down to 886 would take it to around the low 80 cents. Also close that bottom side gap, and that'd be a perfectly natural bounce around the Fibonacci levels. So that's what we're looking at in the light of those earnings from Nvidia coming out tomorrow, along with the Rocky Outcrop show. We couldn't ask for much more than that. The AI locomotive train continues. Sounds interesting. I do like trains myself, but you have to remember that in movies, trains often explode or drive off bridges. So we're going to pay attention for any signs of that. Not just bad results, but what the market thinks the results look like. Because remember, it's all a beauty contest and everybody has their opinion. Wall Street currently whispering higher than consensus numbers to each other in hotel bars. But actually, Nvidia meeting expectations might not be enough when everybody's looking for that locomotive growth, that powering down the tracks. In February, it beat expectations, but the price dropped by 8.5%. That post-market, which is technically called markets being daft, and they continue to be so. So what have we learned? Nvidia is both the church and the preacher in this AI boom. It leads many other stocks in the same sector. The market's faith in chips is a little bit like that ladder balanced on that skateboard. China, Trump, and something to do with H2O, all involved, and none of it's reassuring. Shareholders will react like startled pigeons no matter what numbers are produced. In conclusion then, Nvidia is going to shaft everybody or help everybody along the track. Investors sitting around glowing Bloomberg terminals, holding hands, chanting like it's a seance, and that's what tomorrow's going to be like. So are you going to be there? If not, you're probably going to be watching the Rocky Outcrop show, which is the best place to be. And I can also give you some updates then on what we might expecting comes next. Nvidia, if it does manage to rise, then all boats float higher on a frothy custard sea of artificial intelligence. Microsoft, Amazon, Palantir, all big ships getting bigger. But down at the shoreline, knee-deep in the foam, stands LivePerson, up to its knees in that dirty custard. Nvidia hoovering up billions, building up the motorways of AI. And if you check out that COMM call, by the way, 300% itsy bitsy trades. LivePerson is trying to sell lemonade at the motorway service station. Its advantage is very simple. You don't need a multi-billion-dollar budget and a team of PhDs to build some proprietary AI agent which will break down the road. You need a managed service, sort of like the flat pack IKEA of the AI world, and Allen key included, so you don't have to cry in the car park afterwards or drive back up to another bloody hardware store to find another tool you don't have. You just get LivePerson and blend it into your stack. A very interesting conversation, which I learned loads from on the paid side of Discord between I'm Not a Cat and Spectre Wolf. So get yourself on there and check that conversation out, and you'll definitely pick up a lot of context on this trade. If Nvidia confirms that the world still wants more AI, which we all think it does, just at a different pace from each other, and Wall Street claps like a seal that's drunk too much of KT's coffee, then LPSN will be validated by proxy. Enterprises will keep throwing money at AI. And the more that happens, the more we'll realize that they can't afford the supercar. They just need something road legal with a boot that opens, and LPSN is that boot. If Nvidia trips, sneezes, or forgets his homework, even LPSN could wobble. The mighty LPSN. Investors may tar AI and every name in the sector the same, because essentially Nvidia leads the market, it leads the sector, and it's the heavy end of SPY. It doesn't take a $40 trillion valuation to justify a move in LivePerson. It just needs to start doing its job properly, and that coming through in results. We expect to see it shortly. If Nvidia drops beforehand, it could be quite annoying. So this tortured metaphor, this walk around the garden, is designed to highlight the fact that Nvidia leads this sector. It has an outsized impact on all the other stocks. LivePerson will be highly influenced by that move tomorrow, as will everything else in the stock market. And we already know where we think it's going. If the jelly sets, guests cheer, and the markets rally, even the forgotten custard gets spooned into your big gob with a smile. But if the jelly slides off the plate and the entire dessert clashes onto the floor, then Auntie Janet will tell us all she didn't like custard anyway and start sinking into her own misery. Expect her to start trying to punish the markets. Nvidia's earnings are not just a report, they're the fate of dinner itself. And Lipson is the spoon. Small, overlooked, slightly ascent. That's the chart on the 4-hour time frame. You can drop down and look at something interesting on the 1 hour, where you've got this gap closed, the next Fibonacci level on the channel, and if that was to break, where would you get a low in the previous move? Close that gap. You see that's also confluent with the low side of Fibonacci zone within a channel. All of that coming together on 24-hour time frame. You can see just at the top side of what was previously resistance. Now, if price action drops back into this formation, that's not the be-all and end-all of the move to the top side, because this downward sloping resistance line being punctured once, that's very positive. Describing it as brittle would be an understatement. What with it being a diagonal in the first instance, you're looking at that horizontal, the 618 of the previous move. Break that, you'll be going on to test the previous highs, and that takes things up in huge multiples. And if you are interested in important areas where price might be collared in future, then you won't find those answers on the option chain. But I've done the research and I'll be putting it all on the paid side of Discord, so you can see exactly where price is likely to find resistance outside of this range and far higher up in the coming weeks and months. Thanks very much for being a supporter if you're a channel member or a member of the Patreon and the paid side of Discord. Thanks very much. It's very much a community, and everybody who contributes to the community is appreciated. Hit the like button,